Hello, my name is Gary Faessler, and welcome once again to Chefs About Town, the show for people who really love good food. My guests tonight are Sinclair Phillip, restaurateur, and Gordon Cowen, chef at the Sooke Harbour House, which is a restaurant and hotel on the southwest side of Vancouver Island. Welcome, Sinclair.
It's nice to be here again, Gary.
And Gordon.
Thank you.
And what are we going to do tonight?
We're going to be preparing one of our nicest local fish. It's quite uncommon, or at least it's not used very often. It's a wolffish.
A wolffish?
Yes.
This is unusual.
This fish feeds mostly on crabs and other crustaceans, and so its meat has a very nice flavor. I think I'm just going to get right to
okay. Gonna
filleting him. Yes, I have. First of all, there's not very much meat on the end of his tail, so I'm just going to cut the very end of his tail off.
Okay, that's gone.
Okay.
Sinclair, you were mentioning that they also eat abalone?
This is one thing I was going to mention about this fish, and that is that unfortunately we couldn't get it with the head on, but it looks very much like a moray eel. It has very small eyes and two sets of big teeth, and it's one of the only fish that has teeth that are called canines.
Right.
And those canines are extremely powerful, and they're used for eating through abalone mussels.
Amazing.
And the abalone mussels,
and
they eat the shell and all, and the abalone mussels are what give it the sweetness of flavor. Now this is a smaller one than the ones we'll usually get.
How big do they get?
Oh, we'll often get them 5 or 6 feet long.
No kidding.
And they're quite often a light blue color, rather than this gray and white color. Underwater they're particularly blue, and they're actually quite a friendly animal, unlike the moray eel.
I wouldn't think they would look too friendly underwater, though.
They look quite, they actually hide. They're in no way menacing. You can feed them and bring them out from under the rocks.
Wow.
These are a very common fish to British Columbia, but most of the fishermen don't bring them back, or if they do, it's for the export market.
Because there's not a big market here, I guess, in Vancouver?
There's a fairly big market in the oriental fishery, but there's no reason why there shouldn't be. It's an outstanding grilling fish. It doesn't shrink much. It has a sweet flavor. It's an outstanding fish. Now there are two fish here which may have the same names. There's the wolffish and the wolf eel. Mm-hmm. The wolf eel, I'm not sure, is exactly an eel either, but it's a much deeper water fish, and it only grows to about 18 or 24 inches in length.
And the wolf eel is fairly aggressive animals.
No, neither one are, but
really?
It's just that you won't get the wolf eel as often because it's usually at about 200 fathoms or over 600 feet, whereas this is often in much shallower water. This is a very common incidental catch in British Columbia with cabezon and sculpin, and an outstanding fish. We buy it whenever
But we don't
can.
see it too much in our markets. That's too bad. Because I've tried this. It is a beautiful...
It's probably because we buy it all up at the Sooke Harbour House.
It is a very, very firm fish. It's and wonderfully fine textured. It's really, really lovely.
So how are we going to prepare the wolffish tonight, Gordon?
We're going to be sautéing it and serving it with a squid ink sauce and a beet sauce.
Squid ink sauce.
Yes.
That's unusual.
Some people are put off by the sound of it, but it's actually very delicate and not at all aggressive like what you might expect it to be.
It'll be quite pretty with the, I guess we'll see at the presentation with the white fish, I guess.
Well,
it'll actually taste fairly sweet and buttery in the sauce. It's an excellent flavor for a fish, as well as a beautiful color.
Right. Yeah.
Oops.
No,
Just one thing about squid ink while Gordon is preparing this. Squid ink is quite commonly available here, and you'll often see it in the bottom of the bag if it's freshly bagged here. If you can't get it in the bottom of the bag, it is available in packages, because in Vancouver for the last 3 or 4 years, and in most of Canada, squid ink has been used for coloring pasta. The black pasta you get in many supermarkets as well as in gourmet delicatessens is made from squid ink. And today, unfortunately, we couldn't get fresh squid, so we are going to be using those little packets.
Okay, I know my friends at some friends of mine at Gourmet Pasta do make the squid ink pasta. They do have the squid ink that they buy in the little packets, but I'm not sure how available that is. But
it's quite readily available. It depends on the time. The reason that it's less available at the moment is so many people are using it to make pasta that sometimes it's hard to get.
Right.
But most of the people, if asked locally, most of the fishmongers will reserve squid ink for you.
Okay.
At your local pasta shop, you should also ask if it's squid ink pasta, because there are other colors that they use to make black pasta which are not squid ink.
Right.
And
Well, I know with gourmet
which
pasta
are,
they do.
are much inferior to the squid ink.
I've been to their factory and I've seen them use it, so I know that for sure. Actually, it looks the same as these packages here.
I'm just chopping some shallots and garlic
Okay.
here for my squid ink sauce.
These are organic from Capers in West Vancouver.
Right.
Beautiful product.
I've done a show with the chef at Capers. It's a great restaurant and produce store.
Okay, we're just sautéing our onions and garlic.
Okay.
In the meantime,
That smells great.
I have some baby beets here, which I've already blanched and peeled. I've left a bit of the stalks on. What we're going to do is put them in a pot with a little bit of the liquid they were cooked in. They were cooked with a little bit of cider vinegar.
Oh, that's interesting.
If I can...
Gordon, really quickly, could you explain what you mean by blanched for the people who didn't see that?
Yeah, good question.
Blanching is just a technique of partially cooking a vegetable so it can be redone at a later time. You cook them to almost done and then run them under cool water so that
Cook them
when
in boiling water.
Yes.
Yeah. Just for a short time.
My shallots and garlic have been sautéed. I added a little reduced fish stock to them. I'm going to add a little white wine here.
And fish stock is readily available. You can purchase it if you can't make it yourself in both Vancouver and Victoria.
Okay, a little.
You can get it down here at the Market Kitchen.
I suppose
Market.
if you wanted to, could you substitute clam nectar or oyster nectar for that, Gordon?
Yes, I think you could. I prefer the milder flavor of the fish stock.
It's kind of nice to make the stocks from the fish you're actually using. It reinforces the flavor of the fish.
And the flavor of the fish, when you take a bite of the fish, with the stock of that fish in the sauce, it'll pull that flavor out of the fish. It just reinforces it.
Absolutely.
Good point.
Okay, I have my beets going here. They're just being reheated. I'm waiting for my stock to reduce here.
Now, when we say reduce, you mean that you're just going to leave this on a high heat and let it boil down to how much?
Well, there's a particular syrupy consistency that I like to wait for.
Okay.
When we achieve that, I'll point it out to you.
Okay.
But
Great.
it's just a certain look.
Right.
Cooking is a bit of a
Feel
rather
for the food,
than
what you're doing.
Exactly.
There's no
there's
law.
Exactly. You have to.
There can't be, because the butter will be of different consistency from one area to another. The fish stocks will be different. The products will be different.
Yeah.
You have to adjust by eye and taste.
Exactly, yeah. And good idea, good point too. It's just to taste, as we make these sauces, taste and see at home, see how they're coming along. You may want a little bit more wine, a little bit more shallot or garlic, whatever.
I have my. I have put a little bit of cider vinegar in with the beets, which brings out the nice red color of the beets, and also complements them very well. Pickled beets
Beautiful, yeah, of
are
course.
very popular.
I love pickled beets.
You know,
and with good reason.
there's a flower we should have brought that we didn't, which would have been great as a garnish. Black pansies
Oh, yeah,
with
right.
the black sauce.
Yeah, I know. I just saw those out at the Harbour House. They're really wild looking. Just
We have
really
quite a lot
black
in our
pansies.
garden
And
this year.
Pansies are edible, by the way.
Okay, I'm just waiting for my sauce to be. We're just starting
Just
to
about
reach
there.
that point, and you can see that syrupy consistency starting to develop.
It's getting a little thicker, a little more buttery.
What that's caused by is the gelatin drawn from the bones of the fish, and that's why that happens like that.
Wonderful. So this also, why we do this is so that the sauce is more intense in flavor as well.
Exactly. If you add too much, if you add your butter too early to your butter sauce, also, what will happen is your sauces will be too thin, and
Right.
you don't want that to happen.
It'll run all over the plate for one thing, which isn't as attractive.
You want a nice buttery consistency.
Thick enough so that it will set and remain beautiful on the plate.
All right.
Right.
Now the secret here is to turn off your heat. If I can find the right switch, just like so.
Okay.
Now I'm going to take a whisk and put in my squid ink.
This is the squid ink.
This is a little bit thicker than real squid ink. It's slightly reduced and more concentrated than you'd usually get in a fish store. So you probably need a little bit more, and you need to
Okay, perhaps
start the reduction a bit earlier.
Perhaps I can show the package there.
Right. Here, I'll take that. So that's what the packaging looks like.
Okay, and again, my beets are just about there. Put my pan back on the heat. It was getting a little too hot before. Okay, now what I want to do is whisk a little bit of butter.
Is that called a pinch of butter, Gordon?
I had a chef.
How much would you say you had? About 2 tablespoons full of butter there?
Perhaps a little less.
So why don't we turn these beets down a bit?
I'm just
Not
going to
that
pull them
far?
off
Okay.
right now. Okay,
Great.
and just a touch of stock. so I
Stock, some fish stock.
Beautiful color. You can't
And-
see the black in the pan. It's sticking to the bottom, and it's very, very black.
Again, just in the pan, once we have that, whisking in the butter to make your little bit of a beet sauce.
I want to mention too that beets are beautiful right now, right, Sinclair?
They're very beautiful right now.
Wonderful.
They're small, and it's
That's
a good
why we're
time.
using them.
It's a good time to thin them out, and it would be nice as well if you were making this at home to use the beet greens as your cooked vegetable as
Good
a green
idea.
contrast. It's an excellent cooked vegetable.
Yeah, beautiful.
And we're ready to start cooking our fish. That's just a little bit hot.
Gordon, if they couldn't find wolffish, is there a fish you'd suggest as a substitute to this one?
Cabezon is another excellent local fish that is underused and truly excellent, very similar in texture, and again, the cabezon lives on by eating abalone and a lot of other
So
such.
it's a similar texture, fleshy fish as
but
this one.
It's very firm and has a real sweetness to it that many other fishes don't have. These are really some of our very best local fish.
And as always, it's important not to overcook your fish. I have just a couple of onions for garnishing here that I'm going to just quickly add in with my fish. And if I could get
What would you like?
a plate,
Okay, do you want to
I
pass
think
the
we're
plate,
ready to
Sinclair?
put this on the plate.
I just want to mention very quickly too that as we've done before in the show, that as you can see when we prepare fish, that we build our sauces first so that we can concentrate on the cooking of the fish, because we don't want to overcook the fish. It's easily overcooked and it's not nice. It's dry and tough and not very pleasant when it's overcooked, like most anything.
Now you can see the striking color of that.
My God, that's black.
Now our beets and our beet sauce. That's a little bit hot. I better
Yes.
don't want the chef burning himself. With a little of that sauce.
Wow.
You can see how pretty the beet greens would be as an additional
Yeah,
garnish to
the
this.
beet greens would be a good
But
idea.
we've got another beautiful garnish right here.
Green onion.
With just a couple of pieces of green onion to finish off.
Beautiful.
And
Very
that's
beautiful.
our
And it smells fantastic.
It does. Yeah.
Very sweet.
Very sweet.
okay. I think next
Okay, we'll just move this out of your way.
we're on to the
Don't forget these
onto our oyster dish.
dishes cleaned up.
If I could, we're just going to quickly show you how to open it.
So shuck an oyster. This
Exactly.
is one of my favorite things to eat, our local oysters.
Now, when you say our local oysters, these are a little bit smaller than some, but I think it's important to use our local oysters.
Right.
There are really no better oysters in North America.
Right.
This is the Japanese oyster, a raft cultured Japanese oyster. Are you going to start, Gordon? And
Sure.
Yes.
I just wanted to point out before I start the little hinge at the back of the oyster here, which holds the entire oyster together. The rest of it is loose. So the place to start is by inserting your knife into the little hinge, and just like so, and giving a little twist. It actually comes quite easily. Once you have the oyster open this much, what you do is you put your knife against the top shell and just slide it in a circle to break the little connection between the oyster and the shell.
Yeah.
This little spot right here is what holds the two oysters together,
right,
and can allows him to close his shell.
That's like the hinge, like on our jaw, like on most animals.
The hinge is more here,
yeah,
but the muscle that pulls, which is attached in the exact same place on us, is a little further forward on the oyster. And I already have some oysters shucked for myself here, and
that's a beautiful oyster.
I'd like to mention something here, and that is you're much better off buying the oysters and shucking them yourselves. I would smell each one as you open them. And of the 4 common local oysters here, the very best would probably be the Kumamoto or the Japanese oyster, which were introduced into British Columbia in
the larger oyster.
1912. Now, this is raft culture. It's a local raft cultured oyster. It has a more fluted shell and a more fragile shell. This probably has a better flavor year round, although I wouldn't use them as much in the summer. It's not the best period, but rather in the winter. The reason that this has a better flavor is because it's an intertidal, above the bottom oyster, and it doesn't pick up the muddy flavors of bottom cultured oysters.
I want to mention too that when looking for oysters, but I don't know if you found this or not, but I like to look for the deep shells, and I find that the oysters inside seem to be a little plumper and fatter.
They're plumper and fatter, and they retain a little bit more nectar. Be very careful when you're opening them, as Gordon did, to keep the rounder side to the bottom so that you maintain the maximum amount of nectar. You don't want to release that.
Yeah.
Okay, the sauce that we're making with our oysters today is a nasturtium butter sauce made from nasturtium flowers and leaves. Nasturtiums have a nice peppery flavor that goes very, very well with oysters, and once again makes for a very attractive sauce.
I should mention that you grow on the grounds around Sooke Harbour House a number of different edible flowers and greens and
we probably
and
grow from 150 to 200 types of edible flowers. Nasturtium are one of the nicest in that both the flower, which is several different colors, as well as the leaves are edible, and we also pickle the seed pods and make something which is very much like capers from that.
Exactly, because they're a little larger.
That's true. We make butters with them, we make vinegars, we make oils.
Beautiful.
They're very beautiful edible flower. One of the classics.
They have like a watercress type of flavor to them?
They are very closely related to watercress.
Right, so you can use the leaves and the flower as well.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, I'm adding my finely chopped shallots and garlic into the pan. If I can just get this one on here, so my pan is getting a little bit warm while my sauce is started.
Right, good idea.
As you mentioned earlier, it is a good idea to have your sauce finished and on the side before you start cooking your fish, because you don't want your fish standing around waiting for you to finish your sauce and overcooking.
Exactly.
So just saute those ever so slightly, so as to draw the flavor out of them, and so they have the sweetness rather than a strong flavor when they're left raw.
Whoa.
A little
Fish stock.
Let that reduce a little bit. A little dry white wine.
And so again, we want this to reduce until we have that nice consistency that we mentioned earlier.
That's absolutely right.
And this is definitely one case where oyster nectar would be very practical in making the sauce.
Absolutely.
It'll really reinforce it if you can maintain it.
Yeah, good point.
Oh, that's a good idea.
There we go. Let's put some in now. I love oysters.
Okay, just check the temperature on my hands are red from the beets. That's coming along nicely. Okay, over here I will be chopping my flowers. There is the
Lucano plates.
The whole nasturtium, and we like to use several different colors just for the contrast. The flavor is the same in the yellow, the red, and the orange.
Okay, and this would look nice on a flower pattern plate that we're going to have. Yeah.
This is one of the most beautiful dishes that we serve.
Well, I like to think they're all equally beautiful, but some people have their preferences. Just keep a bit of an eye on that. There's our plate arriving.
Oh, doesn't have nasturtium flowers on it, but it will do.
Well, it'll do. Yeah.
Okay, and the leaves of the nasturtium flowers are edible too, and again, they have the same peppery flavor as the flowers.
Yeah, they actually taste identical.
Very, very
Flavor.
similar.
Yeah. And find often the case, I'd just like to mention too that on the Grand Sooke Harbour House, when I was there tasting the flowers from the herbs and the different plants, that the flowers often taste the same as the herbs that they're off of. They're almost identical.
In almost all cases,
Yeah,
they
like
are.
chive flowers taste like chives and so on.
There are some
Rosemary flowers
exceptions.
taste
The
like rosemary.
pineapple sage flower has quite a different flavor of its own. It depends, but in most cases,
But in most
that's
cases
true.
it does, yeah. Yeah. Especially rosemary flowers, I find that they taste
They're
a
beautiful.
lot like rosemary. Beautiful.
Most herb and vegetable flowers are edible.
Once we have reached our
right.
syrupy consistency. Once again with our thing, you can just see there that
That's great.
that it's
Can I
just
Could you get Gordon a little more cooking wine?
Let's taste that. Wow, that is beautiful.
It's probably
It's wonderful.
quite
Whoa.
pungent from the.
I'm getting hungry.
Okay, we need a little butter here for our. Whoops, that's more than a
It's
little.
a little.
Yes, this is light modern cuisine.
Yeah, that's right.
We all need to live it up once in a while. And add in your flowers at the very last moment. Just stir them in.
Why is that? Why would you add the flowers in the last?
If you add them any sooner and they're cooked over the heat, they will discolor and it will lose the whole effect of the
They're fairly fragile.
of the sauce.
They're very fragile.
Very fragile. Just
One-
going to saute our oysters.
One little word, be very careful that you remove any bugs you might have in your flowers
Yeah.
by putting
idea.
them through a salad spinner or on a very stiff piece of cardboard. You don't want those unwelcome visitors. And again, use only organically grown flowers.
Right. Because of course, as I mentioned many times in the show, that other flowers from the nurseries, they have to use pesticides and sprays and such for the type of product that they're going for. So you don't want to eat the flowers from your nursery because they are rather toxic. Oops. Even though they're beautiful.
Okay, the oysters, we want to cook them just till they firm up, and not a lot longer. And it's important to heat up your pan before you put the oysters in, otherwise they're going to stick, and because they are fragile, you're going to have trouble getting them out of the pan in one piece.
That's a good tip. That's a very good tip. Make sure your pan's hot. That's a good rule of thumb for generally most
Most
cooking.
fish cookery, especially.
Yeah, most fish cookery. That's right.
Also, generally speaking, anything which can be eaten well raw requires very little cooking. And oysters are a case in point.
On high heat.
That's
Very briefly.
How else would you prepare these?
well, I prefer them. Do you like in preparations with garlic and chive blossoms and nodding onion flowers is one of my favorite preparations, and generally more savory sauces and the likes.
There we go. Isn't that beautiful?
That is beautiful.
And just a perfect plate for it.
I was just wondering if you wanted to have an oyster, like we have one shucked over here raw, and would you just, if you wanted to add just a little something just to drizzle on it, just you would want to keep it very light. Like a lot of people who eat raw oysters, some people eat like things like ketchup and horseradish and stuff, and that to me is horrible to do that to. It's such a beautiful.
That is very uncommon in British Columbia. People, generally speaking, do not eat them that way because it destroys the flavor of the oyster.
Does destroy the flavor.
These are probably the most flavorful oysters in North America. Some
Right.
of the more southern oysters from hotter waters will withstand that more Spanish or southern influence and spicing, but these don't need it. It destroys the oyster. Lemon, if you need it. I wouldn't try anything else.
Lemon.
Also, something that is nice is to take the sauce that we started with, which was just the garlic and the finely diced shallots, saute them very quickly, add just a little reduction of the fish stock or oyster juice, reduce it down, maybe a little bit of finely chopped chives or chive blossoms, and over the top of the raw oyster.
Very simple.
And a little lemon juice for a little acidity.
So the oyster would be cold, Gordon, and the sauce would be hot?
Yeah, in French they call it tiède, which
lukewarm,
which means just warm, and in salads
it's excellent on a salad that way. It makes a wonderful salad, particularly if you warm over the salad green.
How about if we just try this wine very quickly? Could you open this for us?
That's a good idea. Certainly.
And this is absolutely wonderful presentation.
And another excellent local British Columbia wine to accompany it.
Yeah, tonight we're going to be drinking a Riesling, Sumac Ridge Riesling wine, which is a very fruity, pleasant wine, nicely acidic.
That's right.
Goes well with shellfish, beautiful shellfish.
The quality of British Columbia wines has improved enormously in the last 5 or 6 years, and we now have several world-class wines, and Sumac Ridge is certainly one of the best wineries we have in the province.
Yeah, great.
Here we go.
Can't wait.
Smells beautiful.
I'll pass that on to Gordon.
I think we'll let him do the honors. There you go, Gordon.
I think since you
Thank
work
you
the
very
most.
much.
as well as being the owner, Sinclair is our sommelier at the Harbour House.
And dishwasher, as you've noticed. There we go.
Let's try this.
Here's to the future of Chefs About Town.
Thank you very much, Sinclair. And Gordon.
Thank you,
and
Gordon.
The future
That was great.
Sooke Harbour House.
Thank you very much.
Can we sit down for dinner now?
It was a real pleasure coming and being able to do this and showing people how to work with some of the more unusual products.
I'd love to have you anytime.
Which really need to be promoted here in the
I think so.
the city.
Because we're so fortunate living here in British Columbia to have an abundance of wonderful product, herbs, greens, shellfish, fish, wonderful, an abundance of product. And I think more and more we should learn how to use these to the best.
That's right. It's nice to be on a show where an appreciation of the very high quality produce we have in British Columbia is encouraged.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
Okay, again, we'll see you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, well that's all the time we have for tonight. So for Chefs About Town, my name is Gary Faessler. Until we see you again, enjoy and good eating. Good night now.